Well, I think there are two soft skills that you require above and beyond the technical skills to either become a people manager or a team leader. And I suppose one is to do with people skills and having an empathetic angle to your personality, being able to help and guide other people, not just from a technical perspective, but through their decisions and learning and giving feedback and those kind of things. And then from a leadership perspective, I suppose it's being able to communicate in a non-technical way to people that are not used to dealing with numbers and data and technology in their day-to-day work, and being able to translate their needs to what that would mean for the data team. So being able to be a bridge between technical and non-technical audiences.
Welcome to Data and AI Mastery, the podcast where we bring you cutting-edge insights, practical advice, and inspiring stories from the leaders shaping the future of data and AI across the globe. I'm your host, Raoul Gabriel Irma, founder of Cambridge Spark, the leader in transformational data and AI upskilling, career development, and progression. In each episode, I will be diving into real-world case studies of companies harnessing the power of AI to drive innovation, reduce costs, and create new business opportunities. So whether you are an aspiring data scientist, AI engineer, or seasoned executive, this show is designed to give you the tools and knowledge to stay ahead in a world where data is transforming every aspect of business. Stay ahead, stay inspired, stay masterful. Welcome to Data and AI Mastery. Hey Meg, so nice to see you again. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you doing?
Brilliant. I'm really excited and looking forward to our conversation. You're the Chief Data Officer at Mumsnet, and it would be really helpful for the audience to understand, what are the defining moments to go from maybe more of an individual contributor role, doing analytics, to leading teams, to becoming a Chief Data Officer, whether like defining moments or maybe certain skills that you develop, or maybe customer interaction that unlock that next stage. I'd love to hear more about that.
Well, I think there are two soft skills that you require above and beyond the technical skills to either become a people manager or a team leader. And I suppose one is to do with people skills and having an empathetic angle to your personality, being able to help and guide other people, not just from a technical perspective, but through their decisions and learning and giving feedback and those kind of things. And then from a leadership perspective, I suppose it's being able to communicate in a non-technical way to people that are not used to dealing with numbers and data and technology in their day-to-day work, and being able to translate their needs to what that would mean for the data team. So being able to be a bridge between technical and non-technical audiences. And I think once you have those two skills, and I suppose not everyone has the natural tendency to have them, but I think you can learn them, then I think you naturally can progress in your career. Because there aren't many businesses where you can stay in your job as an individual contributor without being recognized. You can't get promotions, or only until a certain level. You can't get pay rises continually because you're stuck in a pay band. And so to keep moving, you do need to look at yourself as well and think, what other skills do I need here to integrate myself better in this business? And I think that's what the hurdle. I wanted to stay a technical person and I really enjoyed it, but very quickly on in my career, I found that I was limited. There was no progress for me if I wanted to do that. So I had to think of other skills as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So today you're the Chief Data Officer at Mumsnet, which is really exciting. So to follow up on that, what were perhaps some misconceptions, or what would you say are misconceptions of the Chief Data Officer role? And I imagine being in a sort of a company with 70 people, really agile, is quite different from a bigger firm. So could you kind of like tell us a little bit, your views on it?
Yeah, of course. I think it's a fairly new role, and I'm also somebody who thinks what's in a name. Like in Mumsnet, my title could have been Director of Data because it's a small company and I'm the most senior person working in data. So what's in a name? But I think it means that in the market, because this these titles are being used across very small to very large businesses, that is not always very clear what responsibility their chief data officer or data director might have. It could be a data director in a huge company, but actually they only look after the commercial analytics team. Whereas a data director in a small company might be looking after product analytics, digital optimization, reporting. It could be machine learning could be in there. And I think that's where there's a lot of complexity and understanding responsibilities. Secondly, I think, and I haven't even covered that yet, but what is part of the data role? Are you responsible for building the data architecture and engineering pipelines, or does that sit with the tech team, or does that sit with your CIO? Where does data governance sit? And I think that the mix of all of those issues really make it hard for people to know what the end responsibility of a data officer is, and the knowledge and the experience they can bring.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's kind of like, it's almost like the job title is so simple that, it becomes unclear exactly what all the subtleties involved.
I sometimes wonder if it should be chief insight officer rather than data officer, because in the end, everyone's responsible for the data, for the quality of the data. We, as a data team, don't often generate the data. That gets generated by product teams, by commercial teams, by finance teams. And for the data to be right, they need to do a good job of inputting that data, of saving that data. We are the people often on the other side of the picture who are responsible for the consumption and for the interpretation, the manipulations. But I think, again, like you said, it's such a flux term, so broad, that from the moment there's an issue with data, it comes to the data team. You might not even touch that data until the very end stage of that data coming in your data platform.
Yeah, which I imagine can be frustrating sometimes when you are running the analytics, the insights, but you depend on, I guess, upstream data, which is spread across multiple teams. So it kind of becomes difficult to understand the ownership and the accountability. So I don't know, freestyling a little bit, but what does that look like at Mumsnet? And perhaps importantly, why does data matters why does data matter at Mumsnet? Why is it important?
You'd be operating blind, first of all, if you don't know anything about your data. Mumsnet's a website which relies very heavily on the platform, on the forum part of the website. So there's a lot of data being captured every day. We've got millions of visitors every day, and not every visitor will post, but a lot of visitors read posts. So we have to have a good understanding of how many people come to our site to do what. So if we can't capture that data, we have no idea how the site is going and how it might be going in the future. Because on a forum, if people stop responding and stop putting replies and posts on there, then after a while, we won't generate traffic from organic search anymore either. And the influx of new users will go. So for Mumsnet, understanding website behavior is super critical.
So last time we caught up, we were talking a little bit about, ChatGPT, released 2022, I guess, at this point. Time flies, right? And, one of the advantage of being kind of like a more nimble, agile company is you get to adopt cool new technology. I'd love to hear your experience, from the moment ChatGPT was released. What did you do about it? Did the team adopt generative AI? Can you talk us through, how it worked out? Because I know you've been working on a few exciting use cases, which obviously I'd love to talk about on the show.
Yes, of course. So I joined Mumsnet in November 2022, which is exactly the same month as ChatGPT going live. And one of my data scientists had already been trying to very early on build NLP models to try and, from all of the posts on Mumsnet, to try and extract brand information. So a user will ask a question and say, I've got a wedding to go to in 2 weeks. I'm about this tall and this is the shape of my figure. I'm this age. What could you recommend? And then people might start responding and say, well, actually, I've bought this dress from there and really love it. Or I wouldn't recommend this brand because those dresses, they won't suit your shape, blah, blah, blah. And so there's a lot of brands being mentioned throughout conversation. And this is just a style and beauty example, but we will have that throughout, because Mumsnet is not just about parenting, it's anything from gardening to lifestyle, TV, politics. We've got hundreds of boards where people can talk about different topics. And within some of those boards, there are plenty of brand mentions. So we were trying to, in a more easy way, analyze the conversations on site and pull out where brands were being mentioned. And traditional techniques, they worked, but with limited success. So imagine a retailer called Boots, but you equally have a pair of leather boots. And traditional NLP methods were not able to distinguish between those two ways of writing, or the word next and the brand next. Next is often used in daily language, the brand as well, but of course, everyone understands the confusion. And once GPT went live, the LLMs are able to take into account the context, and they are able to derive from a bit of text with context that the boots is the brand Boots, and the product might be face cream and not shoes. And they're able to add sentiment to it. They're able to give a classification saying, oh, actually, they're talking about product quality, or they're talking about the price, or they're talking about they're solving a skincare problem. And so it's categorizing all the conversations. And so we set up this AI pipeline where we're creating from our rough text database a nicely structured brands database, which allows us to very quickly hone down on insights on a particular brand. So we can go to our clients with that information and say, your brand is being mentioned on Mumsnet X many times in the last month or over the years. This is the trend. We can see that users are more and more negative about the quality of your product, but however, they're very positive about this aspect. And for every client, we can tailor it. We can even say, we can see that brands within this particular, for example, Boots might be mentioned in post alongside other brands. So we can see from a user perspective what they deem as competitors. So there's a lot of very, very interesting information we can now quickly access. And I'm not saying it's perfect, but it has moved the dial for us massively. And so once we've done that, we started thinking about even letting the AI do the analysis for us, for the data team. So our data scientists quickly created a tool called MumsGPT. And I say quickly created because the first product version was ready in June last year. We're now still further developing it to making it better and improve it. But the initial version was already really cool. You can just ask it a question and it will mine our own data to find the answer. So it's not going to look for any, because people ask, why wouldn't you just ask OpenAI's GPT? Because we want to be sure that the answers we get is from our users. So
is it for internal use or for your partners to get insights?
For both. So for internal use, for our commercial team to develop client pitches and propositions, but equally we are intending to sell it as a standalone solution so clients can access it as well. And we have some interest from some really great brands in the UK who have already seen the tool working and who want to know when the first client version will be live. But
Amazing.
Internally, we're using it already. And we're not just using it now to summarize. It used to be just one AI agent to summarize data. It's now an AI. It's a combination of AI agents that can combine qualitative data with quantitative data and give you the more fully rounded picture of anything people are talking about on the forum. How many times has that been viewed? What's the sentiment around this particular person or that particular brand? And it's wider than just brands. So it's really cool.
It's super cool. So let me unpack all of it because there's something really juicy here. So I'll play it back and I'd like to kind of ask a question. But all right, so it sounds like clearly you have so much textual data, which is just there to be mined. And when ChatGPT, came around and LLMs, they enable you to kind of maybe elevate the sort of NLP opportunities and get kind of more contextual information, identify brands. So that's super cool. I'd love to understand this first use case. How did you translate that effort? You mentioned your data scientists, so clearly there was some integration effort. We can identify brand names, cluster them, and so on, and presenting that back to your partners. How do you measure ROI of the, all the implementation effort that was needed to make, that data available and presented to your partners? How is ROI measured?
Before I'm going to talk about ROI, there's one more thing I wanted to add for your audience, because we know that our users are very skeptical about AI. And so the first thing is that I want to reassure, we don't use AI to post content on the forum. All of our posts are human generated. We are using AI at the back end to summarize information, and always with the intent that it benefits the user somehow, whether it's with a brand partnership so that we know the brand knows what our users think and can adapt their product suite to that information, or whether it's for our product team to improve the website. But we will never create AI generated responses to replies, because I believe our users want to know from other humans.
So it's like a protected value as part of, the company, and authenticity seems to be like at the core of everything.
Indeed. And so ROI, the cost of those pipelines is actually not big, which is really cool, because the GPTs or the different versions of ChatGPT or the GPT models we use has become cheaper and cheaper and cheaper over the last 2 years.
Can you quantify that a little bit for the audience? Like, what are we talking about in terms of cost?
I think I guess it's hard to explain, but I think we always look at when we push 1,000 posts through to the API, how much does it cost us? We're talking now dollar cents of a cost. But knowing we've got billions of posts, we do need to be smart about how many and which ones do we push through. That it's become much easier for us to do things at scale than it used to be 2 years ago. The best way, I guess, to explain ROI is to go to the commercial team and to ask them, if you didn't have that data, would you have sold this brand partnership? And we've had a series of examples in the last few months where the commercial team says, we really need this data because we know it helps us convert client pitches.
Amazing. That's a great story. So it's, if I play this back, it's kind of like, one, you've got some significant contracts, and the nature of this industry is you need to provide measurements of what can we do to earn that sort of contract. And you as a team, sounds like you had to actively show attribution. Would that be fair to say that, it's thanks to the effort of your team and the data made available that we've unlocked that kind of insights? Is that the process?
Indeed. I think we are, of course, the commercial team has their own value. They know the clients they work with, they know the agencies they work with, they understand the market, and they're good at talking and selling. I think we're not involved in their meetings, but what we give them is easy access to data where they know, I've got a conversation with this client. We know that these are things this client is currently, based on press articles, struggling with, or has launched this or that, and then can complement that with looking in our data, the data we give access to, and filter on that client and look at what are their competitors, what is the sentiment, what are the hot topics discussed on the forum, which kind of products seem to resonate and being posted about a lot. And I think it's being able to show that depth of information to the clients shows them that we really know and understand our audience well. Because in the end, the brand partnerships are often around advertising, so that brands know that they're talking to the right people on our website once they start a project with us or a partnership with us.
Great. So it sounds like data is actually a fundamental part of Mumsnet business model, because this kind of partnership contracts that earn thanks to the data you've got, the insights that you're able to produce. And something really beautiful that I'd love for you to tell us a bit more about. It feels like it's like one team, one dream, right? You described the commercial team, the data team, but it sounds like you two are kind of like working together as one. I do wonder if it's partly because of the size of the organization. The smaller organization, the more kind of like people are in together and you have less silos compared to, huge corporates. Can you tell us a little bit about the culture of the organization and how it is that your team, the commercial team, seems to be working so well together? That's not that common, I would say.
I suppose, like you said, it's because it's a small company and we all know each other, so it's easy to collaborate. Although we have a very hybrid working culture still, and we see each other 1, max 2 days a week in the office, but a lot from home. But I think the reason why we do collaborate well, and I'm not just talking, like the example I gave is the commercial team, but we equally have a good relationship with the product team or with the content team. I think those are our biggest clients internally. the key to success is that we have those OKRs, and sometimes they're joint OKRs. So we will be working in the same direction. We're heading for the same target. The data team's targets, we're trying to make sure that they're measurable in terms of whether it's a website stat, we want people to spend more time reading pages, or we want more people to come to site, or it could be a commercial stat. I think that's making us collaborate more because we go for the same goal. Our target isn't to giving access to that data, but to ensure that that team uses that data the right way.
That's amazing because, one of the biggest complaints in the industry is often, that data teams are isolated, they kind of like sit on the side doing reporting and whatnot. But it sounds like what you're describing here is the team's purpose is value creation for the company aligned to the commercial team, the product team, and you've been able to do that through those joint OKR. So is that the tool to success? Like OKR is a way to join up teams' targets and outcomes together?
I think a lot of sharing, understanding what each other's complexities and difficulties and ambitions are. So really immersing yourself in the team. I'm not saying it's perfect at Mumsnet, and we as a data team probably still aren't 100% there with the best presentations or making sure that all the data is always understood correctly. But I think really trying to understand your end user and really trying to know why you're doing what you're doing and challenging that helps at giving a better answer, and thinking even on a very small basis on a question. And that's something we keep working on because it is really tricky. We have Slack, like many companies. Somebody asks you a question, can you provide me this? I want to be helpful, I'll provide you that. And that's nice, but on the other hand, we lose time doing that, and we might have spent that time on something that would mean a lot more to the business. So we need to learn to always be critical and always make sure that there's a clear understanding of why that question is being asked, and if there's a different way that we can help them. Because often people will ask us for particular data without giving context. And then we will, because we're in a rush, we are working on existing projects and we have other deadlines to meet, we'll quickly give them that data. But it often then escalates because it goes back. They get the data, they start doing whatever they do. They think, oh, actually, I could have done with this data instead. Or, oh no, I needed it for 6 months rather than 3 months. They come back, ask the question again. And then it becomes a complicated project. Whereas if we all learn to always challenge, why are you asking for this data? What are you going to do with it? Then you can think and challenge them and say, well, I actually think you better look at this data instead. Or now I understand what you need it for. I don't have time to do this at the moment, and I don't think it's that urgent in comparison to the other task I'm doing. So are you okay for me to do this next week instead? And that's what we're trying to install in the critical thinking and the ways of working of our teams. Not just for our team, I think it works across for several teams like that.
Yeah, so that seems like maybe more of a data-driven culture, 2080, what matters now, what matters later, all those kind of like maybe startup principle, at Cambridge Spark, I can resonate a lot with what you said because, it's all about moving fast, prioritizing what you've got in front of you. Some things can wait because they don't really matter now, So you need to have those active conversations all the time. Let's move to the kind of like the final section, the kind of quick fire question. So let maybe start with some more sort of businessy questions. So do you have a contrarian view in the industry, in the data industry specifically?
I find that a funny one for a quick fire question.
It's true.
First, I would say I'm Belgian like you, and I don't think we have contrarian views because we always look for a compromise. But I think on data, the data industry, my contrarian view is that the data industry is a victim of hypes and trends. And the reason why I say that is because having been here for quite a while, I think I can say 2 decades safely, and I've seen things appear and disappear, and things like Hadoop, data lakes, mesh. The name data scientist, even when I started, didn't exist. Now we're talking about ML engineering, ML ops engineering, Gen AI. I think it all comes down to how you use the data and what decisions you make from it. So you can spend lots and lots of money on getting the perfect infrastructure, the most modern technology, but in the end, if you don't do anything with it or not the right things with it, then you end up being a massive cost center. rather than a profit center. And I have not come across any business who really likes that. I don't know if that's a contrarian view, but all these buzz things, we always need to think back to basics and find low-hanging fruit and see which things we can actually do to help a business rather than think about all the nice and fluffy things that we can achieve as well.
Amen to that. First principles, and let's just start somewhere and deliver a win. Let's not overthink it. So next question, how do you stay up to date as a leader, especially since there's lots of hype and so moving so fast, right?
I'm trying to subscribe to certain newsletters and podcasts to listen to what other people have to say. Networking, conferences, staying in touch with old colleagues. I'm part of things like Women in Data. I like attending the collective data tables. I think there are certain types of conferences that are better to understand what's going on in the industry, depending on what I'm after. Like, do I want to understand what's happening in terms of tools and landscapes? Then I would have to attend things like Big Data London, where you've got all the big brands. If I'm struggling with landing AI business cases or how can I convince people to do certain things, then it's better to go to a data leadership conference and speak to people that are in the same position as me. I think that's mainly what I do.
Great. Well, next question is, if you had a magic wand, like Harry Potter style, and you could solve one issue, maybe in the industry or at work, what comes to mind?
For me personally, things like consolidating the programmatic advertising landscape, which facilitate our lives a lot, or solving issues like cookie consent for analytics tracking would solve my job or would make my job a lot easier.
So 3 final, maybe a bit more personal, very quick questions. So favorite subject at school?
You won't believe it. Probably PE. I like PE a lot. Active things, nothing academic.
Great. Favorite programming language?
SQL.
And final question, favorite music genre? And as a Belgian, I'm expecting something big here.
Eurobeat. No. I'm eclectic. I love lots of different types of music. So I can't pick out a genre. I used to love the Red Hot Chili Peppers and rock when I was younger, but I really like ABBA and I like Fleetwood Mac, and I equally like modern music and some dance and things with the beat on. So
that's the
there's
best
not much
way.
music I'll say no to.
Maaike, on that note, it's been a real pleasure to have you on the podcast. I've really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you for your time.
Likewise, Raoul. Good to see you.
I've really enjoyed this conversation with Maaike. It's such a refreshing perspective on how data is delivering impact to a small organization, around 70 people. There are at least 2 takeaways I really enjoyed. The first one is utilization of OKRs, so objective key results, as a tool to join up team efforts and deliver business outcomes together. So she was talking about how the commercial team and data team were working together to deliver richer insights, which unlock new contracts for their partners. So that was really beautiful, and it's made possible through OKRs that deliver momentum and really aligns teams together. So that's a great takeaway, OKRs. The second one was around, when ChatGPT came about, generative AI and, the OpenAI API came through back in 2022. What was the process to identify use cases that can leverage AI and deliver impact? Well, it started bottom up initially with kind of like the view of, let's test things out. Let's see if we can deliver richer type of experience, gain traction, deliver impact. And as soon as success was identified, then it became a top-down initiative driven by the COO that delivered, workshops in different teams to identify use cases and then prioritize them. So I thought what was really interesting here is kind of like the duality between going bottom up to surface out new ideas and experiments, but also the top-down approach to really drive change as part of the strategy. So fantastic episode, and see you all on the next one. Take care. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Data and AI Mastery. If you found value in today's discussion, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an insight from the leaders driving the future of data and AI. And if you're a data and AI leader looking to upskill your workforce with the fundamental data and AI skills to transform your business, Cambridge Spark is here to guide you every step of the way. Be sure to reach out to us on LinkedIn or on our website, cambridgespark.com. Until then, be sure to keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible with data, and remember, mastery comes with continued learning and action. Until next time, stay ahead, stay inspired, and stay masterful.